guys for coming. I love bunnies and they're my passion. I have actually had bunnies in some way, shape, or form through 4-H and FFA since I was about 7. I'm very comfy with them, but I know everyone is not because there's lots of information out there that says that bunnies are scary because they are fragile. So we're going to go kind of quickly through just the basics of bunny care and handling. And I do mean basics, and then we will be able to kind of expand and go kind of where you guys want, as far as, are you more interested in handling, you want to chat about how we care for them in the shelter, or how caring for them in the shelter differs from caring for them in the home, because as much as we would like this to be their home, this is just a temporary stop on their way through. We are going to talk about, they're not rodents. We're going to talk about our handling them safely to do what we need to do with them in the shelter, which is get them out of their kennels for playtime, make sure that we can clean their kennels safely. We are going to talk about how the shelter differs from home life throughout, and then enrichment, because they're prey animals. They are fragile in several ways, but they're pretty sturdy creatures. If you look at the acrobatics they can perform when they're scampering about your yard or the wild bunnies are running around, our domestic rabbits are built of the same stuff. So they can actually withstand a lot, and they can be very hardy creatures. You just have to be aware of where their weak points are, very much like the Achilles heel in the old stories. And we used to market bunnies as like beginner pets and easy creatures to take care of, and they're really not. One of the things that we used to say, 20 years ago, if you look up old bunny information, it's like, oh, bunnies live 5 to 7 years. That is if you don't do it right. Bunnies actually can live to 10 and past easily in home environments. So, and a lot of that has to do with husbandry. So, while bunnies aren't often viewed as exotic pets anymore, rabbits are lagomorphs. They are not rodents. So I didn't do this intentionally. Let's see what happens here. They're supposed to be a bigger. No, there you go. So they're not rodents. And the reason I'm making a big deal of the fact that they're not rodents is because they need some of the same things in their husbandry, but they don't need all of the same things. Lagomorphs are their own thing. They include our coupons, hares, our wild rabbits, and then pikas, which are magical creatures that I hope you get to see one someday. They're ridiculous. But all of these guys are in the same family. There are differences between them, so gestational length is different, hares to rabbits. So hares cook them longer. Rabbits tend to have bigger litters than hares and pikas, so a hare will have 2 or 3 at the most. Rabbits can go anywhere from 2 or 3 to 10 to 12, depending on the size of the rabbit. So that we bred them to make more rabbits. They have different characteristics, so like domestic rabbits come with lop ears or straight ears. There are no non-domestic rabbits that don't have floppy ears, so if you see a floppy-eared rabbit, that comes from somebody's pet. Baby bunnies, so baby rabbits, are born hairless, blind, ears are closed. They look a lot like rodent babies. They're kind of ratty-like. They're helpless. They need to be taken care of completely by mom. Hares are not born hairless. They're born with fur and their eyes open. They can run about 24 hours after they're born. And then pikas are their own darn thing. Depending on where you're at in the world, they do their own jam. So it's a pretty interesting thing. Their teeth do grow continually, like a rodent does. So they need to gnaw and bite and chew. Unlike a rodent, we see more dental problems with their back teeth than their front teeth. So when you're talking about what a rabbit needs to gnaw on, it's actually chewing. It's the roughage they're eating that's wearing their back teeth. It's not the nippy nips that we think of with rodents, where they need to chew those big incisors. It's the back teeth that we are worried about. So we want to make sure they have tough things to chew in the molars. And then they're very, very active during the day or the night, whereas rabbits and all of these other guys are crepuscular. They're active in the morning and the evening, but they tend to loaf and nap during the day. So just these things are what make them different from rodents. I want to just make it clear. It's also why rodent diets are completely inappropriate for rabbits. So a little bit about rabbit anatomy. They have delicate bones. They are fast prey species. They want to pick up and move. They have a lot more fast twitch muscle that make up their body than other species. So they are able to move really quickly, and I'm sure you guys have seen that. This is a fun exoskeleton of a bun, and you can see that when you think about a rabbit, you're not thinking that their hind legs are all in that pop mode, just when they're sitting there. That's how ready they are to go, is they're crouched down, feet under them, power. And all their power is built on their back. So they have big meaty haunches, they have epaxial muscles, which is the loins, that are really, they're posturing. So they are holding all of their organs up off the ground with those epaxial muscles. They have really big eyes. They can see almost 360. They have a little blind spot right here. So if your buddy lets you pet him right here, that's trust. And they use those ears, those giant ears, to hear well beyond what we can. So they are fragile in their backs because all of their musculature is built towards the back, and they're crunched down, and they're just ready to go. Even a relaxed bunny is ready to push off with all the power it's got, its hind legs. And their whiskers act just like cats. So you've seen their long whiskers. They can move them forward and backward. They do have whiskers above their eyes, but often in our domestic species, we've bred them to have certain hair coats, so they kind of disappear and shorten. But they are just really sensitive creatures that are receiving information all the time. And so their environment in the shelter in particular is something we have to pay attention to. If they can hear dogs, a few of them will be okay with that sound, but if they can hear dogs, that's a stressor that adds stress to their little bodies. If we're rattling around and being big and loud and laughing and joking, they have no idea what that means. We can startle them and put them in a state of heightened stress through what they can see, what they can hear, what they can feel with their whiskers. And individual rabbits will have preferences and like things that scare them. So even though we're gonna make a general rabbit room that is comfy for them, we want to be aware of like, oh, we propped the door open because there's no AC in there. They can hear the whole lobby. Making sure that we're aware of what they can hear and see. So for handling, I'm just gonna hold the bunny out here in a minute. The basics to remember are they can see and hear a lot, right? So you're going to be calm and slow. They're little energy vampires. They are going to read exactly what you're feeling. So if you come to them, hi, bunny, they're going to be like, shit, what's wrong? And they're going to be more likely to go into that fight or flight. This is going to be a ridiculous video. If you are calm and slow and confident, they read that. You're like, hello, sweet child, I will touch. They will respond to that. They're going to be like, okay, you're talking to me, let's do this. If they start to freak out on you, or if they're doing the thing where you reach in and they start to go in circles and run around, you don't want to try to catch them from behind. Get in front of them and cover their eyes. Bunnies that cannot see are not going to continue to move forward. They're going to stop and freeze because they lost one of their really big sensory inputs, their eyes. It helps to calm them down, and there have been a little bit of research. If you cover a bunny's eyes, their heart rate starts to go down. So it is a physical as well as a mental calming agent. You want to support their hind end at all times. So the biggest way to hurt a rabbit is to hold on to the front half and have the back half swinging, because if they can get that push off on you, that's where they hurt themselves. I've been in rabbits since my whole life. I've actually only seen a handful of broken backs in that community of people, because everybody is trained in 4-H and FFA and like when rabbit shows and all that silliness, to handle rabbits in a way that is really appropriate for their particular skeletal needs and their musculature needs. So the worst thing you can do is treat a rabbit like a cat. You don't want to pick it up by the front half of its body. It's got to be picked up from its whole body. And we'll kind of go over a few ways to do it. Talk to them. They are really intuitive. They can hear your tone of voice. Most house rabbits become used to human voices. They're sensitized to them. And your tone of voice can help them out as well. So don't get in there and with a dog, you go, what are you? I don't know if you've ever heard a rabbit scream. That's their scary noise. Their scary noise is super high voices, because a rabbit's scream is meant to be a warning to everything else around it, that like, I'm dying, run away. So calm, low voices. So chat with them like you would chat with, someone you're calming down. It's okay, baby, it'll be all right, kind of thing, versus like, oh my God. That's going to actually freak them out a little bit more. Consistency and routine. So if you do the things in the same way every time, and that's part of what this is about, if we get consistent with how we're handling, they will get used to how we're handling, and they will relax into that a bit more. So if we're all doing different things, we're all grabbing them different ways, reaching in different ways, cleaning their kennels different ways, we can actually increase the amount of stress they're under. So just like small children, consistency and routine. We should consider ramps and clicker training when we get there, because rabbits are super into learning how to do things themselves, and that's genuinely the best way to gain their confidence, gain their trust, is to be like, hi, you know how to do this? Good, go ahead. They are autonomous in the wild. They have their little colonies, and humans are fun playmates. And sometimes you get lucky and you get a bunny who bonds to their human really closely, but in general, they're kind of aloof. They like to snuggle on their own terms, they like to play on their own terms, like to eat on their own terms, but they're super trainable. So it's a good way for us to think about buns in the shelter as, let's give you new life skills. And then we always want to avoid scruffing. But there is a safe way to do it, and I will show it to you today, but it's almost always reserved for medical handling, because most of what you guys will need to do is just handling, is getting them in and out, moving them safely. We'll leave the scruffing part of it to vet staff most of the time, but in emergency situations, I want you to have that tool, because it can help keep the rabbit safe. And that's the goal. We're only going to scruff a rabbit if we have to keep them safe. Okay. I'm going to go forward so you guys can kind of read my wordy thing and think about it, because I'd like you to think about what we're doing now and where we would like to go with these things. But I'm going to get Miss Kit Kat, out and kind of go through those basics. So when I first started touching her, she sat still, ears still up, and just sat there for me to touch her. That's a comfy bunny. So she is comfy with me touching her. She knows I'm not going to hurt her. And this is like tolerance or compliance with handling. And she's into that. You can see her whiskers are forward. So she's alert but not scared. Her ears are up, so she is vigilant, but she's not bolting, she's not running. A really safe way to handle any bun is going to be to cover their eyes, and she'll kind of scoop down, and then you're going to treat them like a football. Okay, so since I'm just going to scoop her up, so I've got her hiney. She's far too compliant. She just stretched her legs forward. She's like, sure, let's do this. Oh yes. So this little bit of flippity flop means I'm going to change my position. I'm going to put her head in my arm. So my arm, I'm covering her eyeballs with my arm. She can still breathe just fine back here. I'm cupping her whole weight in my hand. And if I were going to walk around with her, I'd put my hand over here. And what this does is she's completely supported. She can't kick back and hurt herself. She can't see, so her heart rate's going to slow down and she's going to be calm. And I can pretty much take this bunny anywhere I want to go. When I go to put her into a space, I'm going to very specifically not try to pass her in butt first. You can do that if you're dropping them into something low down. But if I were picking her up to like clean her space, pull some dirty bedding out, add some more hay, just move her from a top to a bottom, or take her into the X-Pen, this is what we're going to do. If I want to set her straight down on a surface or a table, I'm going to get down to that level, get all 4 feet on the floor, and let her go. She's a good one. And this is that consistent handling that they've become used to. This is how 4-Hers like set up a bunny on a table and stand back. Because they learn that they're like, oh yeah, I can do this. I can sit here. She's waiting for the next move. Her whiskers are down, her ears are flat, she's breathing normally. She's like, oh yeah, someone has done this to me before. If we handle all our rabbits this way, they will all start to do this. If I wanted to put her back in her cage, that same scoop. She's doing this funny thing with her front legs. It's really cute. Stretching her front legs out like that is her quirk, apparently. So I've picked her up, and if I were going to put her back into her cage, I would actually put her head towards her kennel opening and let her hop in. So that is where we'd like to get with buns. Calm, soft voices, soft bodies, and lots of going to them, picking them up, and keeping that hand on her. Now she's not giving me much guff about this, which is wonderful, but if she were scratching or trying to bite here, or you just like pick them up and were like, oh shit, I'm not ready for this adventure, you can drop to a knee. And set them on your leg or the floor to like reposition. So the idea is just to keep her close to your body. You can hold bunnies that are amenable to it, like this. Supported, feet towards the body, always second hand on top of them. Not all bunnies will allow this. She's used to people. She's into this. I've been working with her since last week so that we would be a good bunny for the class. So it just took a little bit of time. And she's relaxed into it. So her chin is on my chest. She's not panting. She's not excited. This is good. So it doesn't take very much to gain their trust when you get there. Don't do this. Don't grab bunnies around their chest like this. With one hand or both hands. This is something that feels very scary to them, and it creates a fulcrum on their spine where they can flip back. So you don't want to treat a bunny like a cat. If you have little buns and you can't do this handling because they're this big, it is okay to fold them in half. So all her weight's on her butt, and she's nice and curved. This isn't an awkward position for her. You can see her nose is twitching. She's just like, this is how I go. What I have is my, is this weird? It's very weird. I have my hands across her back and under her little arm, into her armpits. So this is okay, and this is a nice way, if you've gotten them off the table, to set them down. So I had control of her butt. She felt the pressure on her butt kick down, but wasn't really trying to get away. She was just like, ugh, I'm not into half anymore. So you just want to make sure that you are conscious of where it is and trying not to overreact. I don't know if, like when you guys were learning to drive, you know how you can correct. That's very tempting to do with buns. So even though she pushed back on me and did a flippy, set her down. She won't be all right. So she's not really worried about it, but she has her opinions of where she'd like if I want to go to the U shape, the folded in half bunny, from here you can, but it looks like this. And she's safe and down and turned before I pick her up. And you don't want to travel this way. This is just a kind of put up, okay? She's only had a week of me. I've only done this like twice. So like these are not brand new to her, but this is not something we've done a lot of. I just want to point out that like this, it doesn't take much if you provide that calm consistency for them. I know. This guy doesn't really care. So up here, I'm just gonna snug this bun while we do this. She's funny. We have official shelter guidelines for cats and dogs that already exist. They first came out from the Association of Shelter Veterinarians. I got word from Mina Del Tar that we will have official bunny guidelines for the shelter in 2024 in March. So yes, we will get those and start to follow them. The couple of really big points that everybody who's touching a bunny or talking to people should know is that they need free choice Timothy or orchard grass hay every day for their whole life. And free choice means as much as they can eat all day. It's good for their gut. Bunnies should be eating constantly and pooping constantly. So they should have those little round nuggies all over their kennel all the time. It is important that they are doing that. So roughage is how they keep their gut moving that quickly. But roughage, Timothy, is also how they wear down those molars and keep from getting dental problems. So the biggest problem with pelleted diets is they're super nutritious. They were developed for rabbit production when we used to eat a lot of rabbits. So those pellets are designed for really fast growth and butcher at 6 to 12 weeks old.
Ooh.
So they're designed to get a bunny to slaughter weight that fast. They're excellent for lactating moms and growing babies. They're wonderful, they're well made. But when we wanted our rabbits to live to 6 and 12 weeks, that's where those pellets came from. Now we want our rabbits to live to 10, 14 years. So it's important that we change their diet to match what they need based on their system, not our desire for them. They eat about a half a cup of leafy greens per pound of body weight every day. A year and a half ago, we started supplying them any greens in shelter because it was a step that our animal care team felt was too overwhelming. So I started a volunteer-based offering of it, and then sometime in the near future we'll have a feeding plan for each of the buns. So this is how much they weigh, this is how many greens they get, and this is where we get it. But that is in process right now. We want to avoid cruciferous vegetables. They have a lot of calcium in them and a lot of phosphorus, and bunnies are really good at making bladder stones with those cruciferous vegetables. There are lots of other things that are in debate with rabbits, so we could talk for a long time about which vegetables are okay in small amounts and medium amounts and large amounts. The big one is leafy greens, dark leafy greens is the primary. And carrots or candy bars. It's been well popularized that rabbits like carrots, and they do. They're really high in sugar, they're tasty. They're candy bars. You wouldn't feed, I might eat a candy bar a day. But we wouldn't intentionally feed our pets that candy bar a day. And so when we think about what we want to give them, most fruits fall in the same category. And will just be treats. So we could have like, have an apple slice during playtime. That's totally fine. Have a handful of blueberries to sniffle and to look for in a sniffle mat. That is perfectly fine. But we wouldn't provide all that fruit as part of their daily enrichment. And then bunnies need an option for drinking. We have gotten in our brains that rabbits drink from water bottles. Most of them will, because that's what is available to them, but most of them prefer to drink out of a water bowl. Rabbits in the wild get most of their moisture from that crepuscular lifestyle, so being active in the morning and the evening when there's dew on the grass. So lots of rabbits, wild rabbits, and their body systems, because they came from wild rabbits, are designed to get water while they're eating. Because we have pelleted diets and dry hay, and our leafy greens are plucked and brought to us, they lack that water. So rabbits will and do need fresh water every day, but they need both options. So we give them the best chance of staying hydrated. So they need the water bottle, because most of them have been trained to look for a water bottle, and the water bowl, because we know that evolutionarily speaking, that's better for them. And then the mental and emotional. I'm super excited to be talking about that, because we haven't before in shelter settings paid attention to, and this is nationally, it's a very new thing to be doing enrichment for rabbits. We do tend to do enrichment for rodents in ways. We give them paper towel tubes, and they make a lot of toys for rodents, for rats. And those are sometimes appropriate for bugs, but often not. Rabbits like really fun, different toys. They like to throw things. So you'll see our rabbits have these little cups. They will move them all around in their enclosure. They'll pick them up and throw them. Rabbits like toys that make noise. So sometimes jingle balls, like the cat toys. Unfortunately, rabbits chew constantly, so plastic jingle balls don't work very well. Metal jingle balls work very well. So here in the winter time, when we start getting like jingle bells available, I'm gonna get some. And we're gonna have a jingly rabbit party. They need to be able to hide. They're prey animals. So having a space where they can get out of the view of everything else is really important to them. So we have our new kennelage that works really well. They can kind of go under that lip, and they like to sit there, and that's acting as their hide. We may have rabbits that would prefer us to hang a towel over that so that they can really get away from everybody. And then when they're in the larger kennels, we need to provide them with an opaque hide. So the classic hides for rodents and small animals are those multicolored clear domes. Those actually are not preferred by rabbits in particular. They're often too small. You think about a rabbit living in the wild and they burrow. They make great networks of warrens. We can't allow that here because that would be terrible. But they do need a place to like tuck in and pretend that's a burrow. So hides are very important for them. Rabbits are really social in general, but what we have done for most of the rabbits we're going to encounter, they're going to be individually housed because that is how they grew up. Humans like to have one rabbit, and so most rabbits have been trained out of wanting a companion, but they do enjoy seeing others and smelling other rabbits. And when possible, when we are able to do correct rabbit introductions, we may move to adopting them in pairs. The other limiting factor for having friends is reproduction. Bunnies cycle like every 16 days. So they can have a lot of baby bunnies. The best pair to have is a pair of boys is the best mix. They love each other, like boys love each other in the rabbit world. And then after that boy-boy pair is a girl-boy pair. That's the next set of bunnies that do the best together long-term socially. Girl-girl pairs are rare because girls are far more territorial than boys in rabbits, sociology. So pairing up two female bunnies is really difficult and has to be done very delicately. For an example, Hershey was the mom that had 4 female babies. By the time they were 8 weeks old, she didn't like any of them. She would not be paired with any of them. And her only 2 of those girls would get along together. The others all had to be separated out because by the time they hit sexual maturity, even though they were spayed and neutered, they didn't want anything to do with another rabbit. Clicker training works really well for rabbits. They're very sound oriented. They learn really quickly, and I'm hoping we'll be able to include clicker training in the future. What we can do now is just charge the clicker. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that term, but have the clicker, and oh, I'm giving you greens, I clicked. Just charge it. That's the only step we would take right now. And then playtime. One of the ideas of getting these bunnies out and being able to handle them and feel more comfortable with them is so they can play. Getting out of the space they have for them is absolutely ideal. Bunnies need a bare minimum of 4 square feet per rabbit. Our kennel spaces now just hit that. And we know that there are a couple of bigger bunnies in there who could use more space. Getting out of their kennel is going to be the most powerful thing we can do to keep them mentally awake and aware and happy, and emotionally awake and happy, and prep them for living in a home. So the big time, the bunny playtime, the time in the expanse is one of the best things we can do for them. So nervous bunnies are very tense. This is not a tense rabbit. Their ears are up, their eyes are wide open, their noses are going a mile a minute. They're bunched underneath themselves, they're ready to move. Floppy rabbits, so you can see this guy is on his side, heads down, eyes are kind of dimly closed, he's even got a back foot kicked out. That's a real happy rabbit, very relaxed. They can get even farther. I don't have a third picture they can go upside down. Upside down bunnies are the best. They're super happy in their environment. Prior to switching to the new cages, I never saw a rabbit like that. So when you walk through the cages and you see bunnies flat out, yeah, you've done a good job. And that is all I have for you today, because we're trying to keep it light and basic and give you guys a chance to maybe handle the cat.